everybody, thank you for coming to the Evolution of the Publishing Industry panel here. I'm Tony Weiskopf, and I am a guest of the con, so I have appointed myself moderator. And we will do the traditional, everybody introduce themselves, because you know far more about yourselves than I do at this point. We will start off with our token dude on my right.
Token dude.
That's you.
That doesn't happen very often.
Oh, you haven't done many of these panels, have you?
No, you know, it's funny. I suggested to them, I think it was last year, a panel about the women in comics, about the whole reboot of the DC thing and everything going on, and they had an entire panelist of guys, and I was like, okay, you did it wrong. Sorry.
Men can talk about women, and women can talk about men. I don't have a problem with that, but yes, I take your point.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Michael Merriam. I'm a local Minneapolis science fiction fantasy author. I'm also a professional stage storyteller when my voice is working properly, which it needs to be at 7 o'clock tonight, because I'm going to be telling with the Rockstar Storytellers tonight over at the other hotel, the Crown Plaza. I volunteered to be on this panel because I've been in the business now about 12, 13 years as a writer and editor and publisher, and I've watched this evolve, and I've been as a writer at just about every level, from big publishing houses like Harlequin down to I run a micro press to keep my own stuff in print. So I'm interested in the topic, so here I am.
All right, roll that back. Give us the first year you were involved with publishing in a professional.
2000.
2000. Such a baby. Okay.
I know. I know. I came to it late in life.
Okay. No judgment. No judgment.
My name is Dawn Frederick. I'm the owner and literary agent of Red Sofa Literary. My first foray into the land of books was my first bookstore job in 1993, so we have been doing this a long time. And I actually managed multiple types of stores, including large-scale stores, doing events and all that fun stuff. And additionally, I have my master's degree in library and information sciences with a focus on children's literature. So actually, I was the only person in my program when people weren't really becoming librarians to go into publishing, because I was like, I'm going to go into publishing, I'm going to conquer the world. And then I went to a publishing house and I freaked the hell out, because that's what you do when you get in. And you get paid pittance, so please be nice to your editors, especially if they're new into the world. And I did that a little while, and I was like, you know, I think I'm going to be an agent. And I went back to the bookstore for a little while, and I network pretty well, which Laura picks on me about, but I know a lot of people. And I was like, I think I'm going to be an agent, but I don't know how you do that. And then one of my friends at my coffee shop was like, oh, I know an agent. And wouldn't you know that I joined Sebastian Agency in 2002. And I was with them for a while. Lori actually made me a partner in the agency, and then I branched off on my own and started Red Sofa. And I do have a red sofa, and I do have a cat. That is always a question when people see our logo. And for me, as an agent, I've been able to see the world of publishing from the days when it was not all Barnes & Noble, and then it became only Barnes & Noble, and now it's not all Barnes & Noble again. But also just how we approached editors and how things were made. And I even did my thesis in grad school on ebooks when there weren't ebooks. So I remember thinking, this seems kind of interesting, and when it exploded. So it's been really interesting from my perspective. So I guess 22 years of my life so far. Yeah.
So you started when you were 4, right?
I was 4, yeah.
Best employee So my name is Laura Zatz. If you haven't guessed, I am also a literary agent under Dawn at Red Sofa Literary. I came to publishing in, sorry Tony, 2011. I came via traditional editorial, and then simultaneously obtained positions at Red Sofa, which is kind of a fun literary agent. We also have an EPUB arm now, and I am also the editorial manager of Wising Creative Publishing, which is a partner publisher. And if you don't know what that is, we can talk about that. But it's in the sort of indie realm, but it's not strict self-publishing. So it's kind of a a new
All right, I have
fangled
no
sort of
idea what
thing.
you're talking about. We'll
We'll talk
about
about
it.
it. I'll explain it.
Yeah. Okay, that will be good. And to my left, author Martha Will.
I'm Martha Wells. I've been in, my first novel came out in 1993, and before that from Tor, it was The Element of Fire, and before that I worked with authors in the science fiction convention that I had. For 1 year I was the chairman as a student. So I've been around publishing and fandom for a long time. I've had about, I think I was trying to count up, not counting foreign publishers, I've had 7 different publishers. In my career. It's my 17th book. My 17th book is just came out. The 2-volume Stories of the Rack Syrup.
Yeah, you may clap.
Can we purchase it here?
No, I don't think they had it. If you come to me secretly, I might be able to sell it to you, but I don't think they had it in the dealer's room.
Pass out your duty keys.
Oh yeah, and if anybody wants them, I have cards. We were talking about a little bit about marketing, but yeah, there are air recognition cards for the characters from my book. So, but I'll put them up here if you want them at the end. You can come and grab one.
What was the convention you chaired?
It was AggieCon.
AggieCon, yeah.
Back when it was the largest convention in the literary, or South, it was the largest convention period in the Southwest at that time in the 80s, in 1986, and there was about 2,000 people there. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work and a lot of craziness.
And you got to meet authors, and you became one anyway.
Yeah, I did. I got to meet It was weird because Stephen Gould actually lived. It's a small town. It's a small university town called College Station, and Stephen Gould actually lived there. And so I did my first workshopping with him. And also later did workshopping. I worked with Bruce Sterling at Turkey City in Austin and quite a few others.
Did you know Rory Harper?
Yes, I did. I did workshop with him. In fact, he still lives in town.
Oh, cool. Well, tell him I said that.
Okay.
I published Rory's first novel.
Yes.
And then that's pretty much it.
Yes.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. So.
Yeah.
My name is Tony Weishaupt. I am publisher of Bain Books, and I predate everybody here. I predate Martha professionally because I started working at Bain in 1987 as a lowly editorial assistant. And in fandom, I went to my first con in 1980. So I did not chair it, however.
I think you do predate me. I think my first was maybe 82 or 83. I went to when I was in Armadillo-Con in Austin.
Yeah.
Early on.
Cool. So we can talk about changes. We all came in at different times and different eras. The evolution of the publishing industry, that implies that there's some sort of progress towards an end, which I don't think any of us would grant.
Well, that's not actually evolution. We're getting all,
Well,
we're getting all sciencey.
All right, get all sciencey.
People argue. I mean, that's the thing with books is that everybody has lots of opinions. It's a business made of an art, and all of the writers have opinions, and all of the readers have opinions, and everybody else working has a lot of opinions.
Everybody is an art director.
Yes. And the big thing is especially if we're talking big scale ebooks and bookstores and Amazon and all that. Some people think that more people are reading now than ever because of ebooks, so the publishing industry is getting better. Some people look at how the market shares of Barnes & Noble and Amazon and think that it's getting worse. So I mean, change and evolution is a relative thing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like audiobooks are starting to get super popular too now.
Super jazzed about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember it was like 10 years ago it would be almost impossible to find someone who wanted to make any book into audiobooks, and now we get called by the audiobook places wanting to turn our books into audiobooks. It's totally,
But that was
it's amazing.
Back in the day, nobody wanted to do science fiction audiobooks when audiobooks first started, partly because they didn't understand science fiction, partly because science fiction books were long, and when you actually had to produce them on first cassettes, and then woohoo, CDs, it was an expensive proposition to do this. Mm-hmm. So what a lot of the ways that the audiobook people did it was to abridge them. And the science fiction people hated that. We wanted to see every drop of blood in George Martin's epic, right? We wanted to hear every, laser going in David Weber's 800-page Honor Harrington book. And so we wouldn't buy abridged books. But the instant it changed over to a digital medium, and you didn't need the physical medium anymore, science fiction went boom. And that was the process that happened there. I'm very ambivalent about audiobooks. I see the audiobooks, the rise of the audiobook and the rise of Dragon program as the beginning of our post-literate society, and I mourn that.
Well, I think at the same time, though, we all are, I feel like I spend more time in my car than I prefer to be. If anyone, don't ever get in the car and hear me complain about driving to the suburbs. I love the city. But, you know, sometimes, like, I have friends who have subscriptions to Audible or Brilliance, and they have as deep a list as any of us do to reading their books, and you can only read so many books. So for me, like right now, I'm reading
I don't understand what you just said, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm reading 5 different books right now, and so I have them in different places and such, but at least with the audiobook, because like Laura, I told Laura to read The Maze Runner, and here she was reading manuscripts and everything else, and she just did it, you did it on audiobook, and you went through the series really fast.
I listened
It's
to
so
the whole trilogy when I was driving in my car and getting dressed in the morning.
I really love audiobooks because as my vision gets worse and worse and worse, I have a degenerative eye disease, I can say that. They really are kind of my savior. I can't really read George R.R. Martin's Chihuahua killing book, small print anymore, and it's too small. Even with I can sit there under a giant magnifier and I still have trouble with it. So in that regard, I love the explosion that what Audible has done for us in this community. I also love it when Harlequin sends me the royalty check and I've sold a bunch of audiobooks and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I actually make money this time.
Yeah, I mean, for authors and for publishers who sell the sub-rights, it's just another format. So you know, in that way, yes, absolutely, I love them too. I'm looking at it more philosophically.
Oh, print books forever.
But you know, one thing too, which I think is really with the evolution of publishing, I remember when I wanted to take a book project out, and I had to call the editor. So I would call them, and I would my list, and
explain to them what a landline is.
Landline, And so literally you're going through directories. We didn't have the internet to necessarily help us here, so you would call the house and be like, I need to call blah, 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 or well, who should I talk to? And you would move. It took a little bit longer to find people. And then there's the beauty of the post office. So I kid you not, if I walk into my post office,
Post office is like FedEx only with,
And I used to bring in 60 to 80 packages a month during the busy season into the post office, and it's like a Cheers moment if you ever saw the TV show. It's like Norm, it's like, hey John, like, you know, like here's the girl with the 60 packages, because if I took out like any work of fiction, I had to send the entire manuscript. So like when I moved last year, I had
about printouts.
Like literally when I moved last year, I had boxes of old manuscripts that I had to just slowly recycle because it really has changed. And now when I go to New York and I see my editors and I'm meeting new editors, they tell me their phone never really rings. It's all by email now. And it's ironically, if I do have a project I'm particularly excited about, something that I know that's going to move quickly, I will call them before I email them. And they know that I'm taking it somewhat like you need to do it now. This is when you want to move quickly on. And that's how they know to move quicker, because I called them, I did not email them.
Yeah.
Well, you know, as an author working with an editor, I had phone anxiety for a long time, so it was really hard to make those calls. Like I still remember having anxiety dream about forgetting the area code for New York. Like it wasn't in the phone book or anything.
Now there's several of them.
But it's like, so I
really
love
just
email.
still 212.
So I love being able to use email because you can talk for a long time in email, you know, about the cover and about all these other things without feeling like you're bugging people. And you can look at it when they have a moment, when they have time to think about it, and you can just, and this one little thing here, you don't have to make a phone call, you can just send it, and then it's in their queue when they need it. And it's just so much better.
Back in ye old days, did you used to go to New York to deliver your manuscript personally? Did you ever do that?
No, I can never afford that. I would like to do that, I just can't afford it. So it's the email, mailing the gigantic package. That was still what we did. And I remember when HarperCollins gave me their FedEx account number, and you can just pay. It's like, it was such a revelation, because before I just been lugging the thing and, you know, shipping it myself, but
Well,
Yeah.
the beauty of electronic everything is like now we have a lot more authors in other countries. So you know,
Yeah.
if we sign someone in another country, I'm not having to pay $35 to FedEx a contract across the ocean to have them sign it. Like we can just do it, you know, by email, which is great. And it makes it easier paying them. It makes it easier dealing with the edits, even the phone calls, because there are times I have to call some of our publishers in the UK, and you know, you just get the expenses just keep getting higher and higher. So it's a lot. I'm like, Skype. We'll just do it through Skype. Like let's just do it. It's really cheaper that way. So it's hard to, or video call them really fast. So.
Yeah, I did that at Harlequin. The only phone call I ever got was from Angela James at Harlequin when they bought the book, and she said, "You were going to buy your book," and I'm like, and then but we Skyped once with my editor there. Melissa Johnson was my editor there for a while, and her and I would Skype occasionally. But most everything was done by email. You know, that they were in Toronto, I'm in Minnesota. The check comes from Switzerland. I know.
Tax haven.
Yeah, it's a tax haven, exactly. We'll see if that changes since Harlequin's been snapped up by
They're with Harper now.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
Well, do you think, I mean, these are all just sort of different ways of doing the same thing. Do you think you're seeing more sub-rights activity, more translation activity, now that it's easier to get in contact with people overseas than we did when it was harder?
My author Eric Smith is a great example.
Okay.
The Geek's Guide to Dating, which he did with Quirk Books, has sold pretty well. But like because he's so accessible to find his books, he's already in 5 languages, but they just sold rights to Croatia and Brazil because people seem to love him through all the various outlets. And I think I can't really get my head wrapped around the whole Croatian, like in the Geek's Guide to Dating thing, but apparently he's a hot commodity in Croatia. So
Programmers in Croatia.
So I think I never really imagined one of my authors would have a book sold in Croatia, let alone something like this. So it works for me. I think sub-rights have been great.
Okay.
I guess I'm not talking about sub-rights, but as far as, so as an agent, you've got 2 sides of your job. You've got the stuff that we've been talking about thus far, where it's our relationship with editors and editorial houses and our current clients. And then the second half of our job is us being submitted to and finding authors that haven't been discovered and that we then sign and we sell their books. And that's changed a lot from what I understand. Social media is a huge way to find new clients. So now if something goes viral, or you know, and we track people down in a different sort of way now. You know, we have Twitter presences where people follow us and get to know us as people so that they can better target who they want to work with as an agent. There are Twitter contests now. There are blog contests with, you know, that are like, I'm talking Pitch Miss and Pitch Madness and all of the various other, you know, Query Combat, all of those other
Do you guys
things.
know what she's talking about?
No,
Hashtag.
no,
Okay.
I'm completely.
Okay, so
If I don't make sense, just raise your
No,
hand.
so if you have a Twitter account, you sometimes you'll use your 140 characters to say something, but then you kind of give it a category or a label, and that's where you see the hashtag and whatever. So Pitch Miss, there's Pit Mad is what it's called.
They're
Pit Mad.
designated days
And
when
but you use the hashtag and you share your ID in 140 characters.
they're designated days, and there are special rules where authors with completed projects who want to be agented or sell their books to publishers will just tweet about their book. And there are rules. And there's hashtags that go along with it, and editors will come in, or agents will come in, and they'll favorite, and depending on, you know, what they require after they favorite it, if they're interested. And that's, I've signed probably 3 authors through Twitter contests.
Out of how many you looked at?
Tell them how many
million.
queries you got.
My-
I should share stuff. Let me give the preface here. So if you are an agent or an editor, you'll get profiled in Writer's Digest sometimes. Like that happens. It happens occasionally. So she got profiled, but they didn't tell her.
Chuck Sambucino, if you're a writer, he's a fabulous resource for
But
people who want
let
to be
me,
published.
so he basically profiled her, but did not tell her.
I love him to pieces, but that was mean.
So
So I woke up.
then tell them how many queries you got in a year after that.
I got 1,000 in the first day. And in that year, I probably was around 10,000. Most agents that are established get about 150 a week, so that's a lot less. If you're lucky, you get 75 if it's a slow week.
All right, just to get a feel for you guys, how many people here in the audience are aspiring authors? Okay. How many people in the audience have already at some point sent a query letter to a publisher or an agent?
There you go.
Okay, so anybody out there doesn't know what these things are, you can ask, it's fine.
Okay.
No, okay, all right. Okay, so we know what level we got here. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right, man with the beard, you had something to say.
No, she was just asking if I'd ever done one of those Twitter pitches, and I'm like, God, no, I can't. I hate doing the log line pitch. I mean, I realize I have to learn to do it, but I hate doing the log. It seems like I would be able to, but but I really, I've done the elevator pitch. I guess it's about the same thing. I don't know. I'm boggled by the 1,000. I used to be a slush reader for Fantasy Magazine, which was a civil.
That's your-
Oh my God. and when people say, I got a job reading slush group, I'm like, oh, God bless you.
How many did you see in Vampires?
Vampires? Oh God, I don't know. But I would see about, we were a pro magazine, so I'd see about 800 stories a month.
It makes you really fun at parties.
It
though.
does.
You've got really good stories for the rest of your life.
I don't think I've ever had to pitch to, cold to an editor, which I'm really, really glad, because everything I pitch would sound completely nuts. All my books, they sound crazy.
Yeah.
So.
I don't take pitches.
Yeah.
I don't think they mean anything for science fiction and fantasy because of that very thing. I mean, if you reduce a science fiction or fantasy idea to an elevator pitch,
It sounds.
it's just like, and here's your, nice tight jacket. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how other people do things, right? I just know what I do. But it seems to me that there are very different skills. Being able to reduce, condense your, 800-page, trilogy to a 140 character idea. If you could do that, you probably would, So I don't find those things useful, but I know other people do. So I guess it is a skill that writers have to learn or that agents provide for them, yeah?
Yeah, we do work together. Like, I just recently signed someone, which I can't talk about it because it's a great idea, but basically I already know how I would pitch it, and I would take what he gave me as a query letter and his book proposal, and I will condense it into a one-sentence pitch for when I go to editors. And of course have my other stuff ready. But that's my job as an agent. But I do need, if you are a writer and you cannot tell me about what your book is about in like 2 or 3 sentences, you are not done, as far as I'm concerned. I need to get an essence or an idea of where you're going with your book. Sometimes people get grabby and they want to do everything. So it'll be like, I have a zombie vampire romance with Amish people set in California. I don't know what to do with that. I need, you got to give me some tools here to work with.
And it could be really fantastic. You can't tell because people who can talk are not necessarily the people who can write, and vice versa. I mean, sometimes they are. I mean, the example I always give is Raymond Feist. He was a used car salesman. All right, he knows how to pitch his stuff. But Lois Bushel, she was not a used car salesman, and she can't write a cover copy or a pitch worth, to save her life. But she doesn't have to because she's Lois.
Well, I think Laura really is interesting because seeing Laura grow into an agent, and even as Ginny became an agent, I'm the cynical one of the bunch. I've been doing this long enough to the point where if I'm like a paragraph, I'll be like, nope, done, move on. There's no more time. But Laura, when she was reading the slush for me, would be like, oh, this seems kind of interesting. It could be a weak query, but then she would read the manuscript and she would be like, this is amazing.
I don't do that anymore.
But in the early days, it really does depend on time, and time is valuable. And if unfortunately, for me, I get a few thousand queries a month, I want to read your query letter. I want to give you a chance, but if I'm not really getting an idea of your book, or if it feels like you're floundering in the query letter, I have to say no because I just don't have time.
The thing about this is that this is one of those, the more things change, the more things stay the same. This is not an evolution. This has been the way it's been for at least 20 years.
Yeah.
So before then, there was some sense that there were more publishers that would take unsolicited manuscripts, so there was more direct submission to publishers, and you didn't have the agents performing the filtering function that they did for new authors that they do today. But I really think it's a matter of degree, not a sea change.
But it's also a lot easier for new writers because you have the internet, which is amazing, and you have resources where you can learn how to write a query letter. You can have online critique groups with people who can help you. You know, you have more agents now than ever doing, and Red Sofa is really great at this, which is why I love being there so much, is that we really take education very seriously, and that's something that's becoming more and more of the norm. When we go to conferences, we teach. You know, we teach at the Locked Literary Center. We've got one coming up next week. I think we've still got room in it. It's about publishing.
Sold out again.
Oh, again?
Yeah.
So it's really great.
All right, never mind. Sorry,
You
guys.
can't have it.
So we'll do it again.
Yeah.
We'll do it again. And there's, you know, there's tons and tons and tons of resources, and there's more people than ever that are willing to hang out with you.
You want to talk about Sturgeon's Law?
Well, I mean, I was just gonna say, when the email queries and having the agent's information on a website is so helpful. I mean, that's not how I got my first agent in the 90s. We did it on the phone. Somebody
You did the
recommended me
Jeff
to
Herman
him.
guide, right? Did you use Jeff Herman's guide back then?
No, I don't. Well, so,
She knew people.
So
who-
I knew
Yeah.
Steve Gould actually recommended this agent, or me to this agent, and that's how I got my first agent. And then later, like in around 2008 or so, I had to fire him. And I'd never gotten an agent on my own. I didn't know how to do it. I had to go like look it up on the internet.
But you could look it up.
But I could look it up. But yeah, that's what was so great about it. And I found, I queried, I think, one person on my own. I ended up going to my friend, Rachel Kane, and got advice from her. And then, so that's how I ended up with my current agent. She recommended a couple of people to me, and so I was able to look Jennifer up online, and, you know, and submit to her. And she takes like the query paragraph in the first 5 pages, which I'm really glad she takes the first 5 pages, because again, my queries sound like I'm just like, you know, having some severe problems, and, you know, they don't sound good, but.
But I think too, with the internet, granted it's like the master of time sucker, it's just a good thing too. And for me, I follow a lot of different blogs, and I follow certain things, and Laura and Jenny witnessed me chase down people who I just read their blogs because I thought they were funny, you know, or that they were interesting. And I didn't have that opportunity pre-internet, you know, it had to be references and connections, but like there was someone who recently did an article that went viral, like 200,000 hits, and I was laughing really hard. I shared it on Facebook. I thought it was amazing, and I called her and I was like, "You're gonna do a book, right? Because you're really cool. I like you a lot." And her and I are trying to figure out what to do with her stuff, but she apparently has been a writer a really long time and self-published a book, and she is a lot of fun. But I would have never found her if it wasn't for that kind of forum.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of self-publishing, I feel like, I mean, this is a big traditional panel, but I, as the resident like partner publisher in the house also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. With the internet, self-publishing is becoming a legitimate option instead of just a place where people who aren't good enough to be regularly published go.
Well, this has always been an option in publishing. This is the more things change, the more things stay the same kind of thing.
But now, I mean, the readers, it's no longer, you know, it's no longer a dirty word. You know, there's more than just a vanity press.
Well, like I was able to do my first 4 books went out of print before ebooks ever came out or were an issue, and so I was able to put them out as ebooks myself, and that does really help me, and it does provide some income, and it lets people still be able to find the books.
Exactly, and even traditional publishers are people in the traditional realm. So Red Sofa has an imprint called Red Sofa Books that we launched last year, and it's for books in serial. Like we did a serial. Like we can't sell serials to publishers very easily. There's a couple of places we can go.
You know we serialize all our books, right? Okay, never
You're
mind.
one of the couple. You're one of the couple. Don't.
But usually it's very hard, so like
It wasn't your kind of book.
Yeah. To be sure, I'm
But
just,
that's why we did it, but it's also something it's very much in-house for our authors. We're not taking submissions, it's something, and so like we have like the print coming out of that serial in a few weeks, and then we have another book coming out in the fall, and then I'm already talking to someone about book number 3 for early next year. But it'll be like 2 or 3 books a year, but it would be just for our authors. And in our world, the agents like Fuse Literary and ourselves, we're actually we're adding a hybrid level to it.
which again is not new. I mean,
Yeah.
Simon & Schuster tried to do that, Pocket Books tried to do that with its science fiction line back in the day when they tried to have Richard Curtis be their science fiction book editor because he knew everybody and they thought that would work. But there was a tremendous uproar about conflict of interest, and it did not happen. So that is a change. You don't hear that anymore. So
There's also what I like to call partner publishing, which is kind of a new term. It's basically assisted self-publishing. So it's self-publishing in the financial model in that the author pays and the author retains all of the rights, but they have very high quality work for hire, where they're basically hiring the publishing company to then, act kind of traditional and get you the traditional distribution and get you, cover designers that are really great and get you world-class editors and all of that jazz, except they're doing it all work for hire. So that is a very, very new model. Which is what the company that I work for also does, and it's something that's been really interesting because I started with that company right when they launched, and it's been interesting to see even in the past 3 years how that's changing. And it's actually also a company that launched first as a blog, so to see just a repository for information turn into a solid business that helps individual authors go. That's a really cool new set of options for people.
actually, a variation on a very
nothing's new.
But the idea that a publishing house is a collection of services to the writer, it's sort of a redefinition of what we think of. But in fact, what publishing houses have done from the beginning of publishing houses. I think the other side of that coin is what a publishing house does and should do is a service to the readers. And so you're providing services both to the provider and to the consumer. And as a middleman, you can get very, very good at that. I think we're starting to see a recognition that this is perhaps a useful thing that is worth spending money on.
Imagine that.
How about that?
Well, I feel like even the booksellers really have taken the lead on this, and one of my favorite organizations is the American Booksellers Association. And I cannot say this enough, support your local bookstore, please. And if you don't support your local bookstore, we're all going to suffer, so please support your local bookstore. But besides the fact, they have these great regional conferences, which are they're all over the U.S. at least, and they basically just, they have these great conference get-togethers, and they bring all the booksellers in, and the booksellers will get to meet 30 to 60 authors. They get free copies of your books. And it's amazing, like with the MIBA, which is the Midwest Independent Booksellers Association, everyone that's ever come to their conference, and usually it's 30 to 60 authors at their annual conference, those books consistently will stay on the bestseller list in the region for the next few months.
The tricky thing about that is getting an author to be approved to be at these things. You can't just sign up as a self-published author and say, hey,
you gotta have some representation. But thankfully, like I know when we talk about different models, like Wise Inc. was able to bring in a handful of people last year, and it was really nice. They actually had a really great setup going. But also there's distributors of these things so that the booksellers know where to get them. And if your book is in one of these distribution chains, Ingram, Baker and Taylor, whatever, Itasca, you name it, then they can still order that stuff, because I can tell you that most independent bookstores will try to avoid ordering from Amazon if they can. So really try to remember the other stones. Don't leave any stone unturned, basically.
Yeah, diversity is
Yeah.
evolutionary tactic.
Yeah.
Mike, did you have anything you wanted? Michael, Mike?
Either one's fine. My mother used to just point at me and say, hey, you,
Hey, all right.
child.
You're the dude.
Child.
Dude with the beard. All right.
Dude.
The
Did you want to jump in with anything here? Because you know we will just talk right over you, right?
You know, I'm like 95% on the introvert scale, so I'm okay with that. I'm married to a woman who's like a 97 extrovert, and that's how we survive as a couple.
Okay.
So I'm okay with, if I have something, I'll
You
send it
will jump in,
before,
all right.
I'll wave, I'll dance, I'll song something.
Yeah, Martha, you want to talk a little bit about changes in marketing? Because I do think marketing is a way that has changed drastically from the 28 years ago when I got into the business. So.
Yeah, when I was first starting out, it was very hard to do anything since I lived in College Station. There was a few local conventions nearby. Those conventions were starting to get smaller. I couldn't afford to go places. You know, you would do things like email. You know, you would have bookmarks made, and you would email them to bookstore, or not email them. I mean, ship them to bookstores for them to put out, and that kind of thing. And there was not very much you could do, and you were dependent on the publisher. And if you had a publicist, which I didn't, I'm not sure I ever did. I think I did once. I saw a publicist once, you know. But yeah, there weren't very many opportunities, and now I think you do have a lot more opportunities with your blog. You can. You know, even if you're not, doing, hard-hitting essays or anything like that, just talking about your life and stuff that's going on, and posting photos of your cats or whatever
You do have to
follow that.
Yeah.
You must have a cat
Or fake one.
Yeah, fake one. Things like that get people, and you can provide. I post little snippets of stuff I'm working on, and people can ask you questions about the books, and you can talk to people and stuff, and so the opportunities to do essays on other people's sites and do guest posts and all that kind of thing. I think there's so many more things that you can do from your home now.
And this is something that introverts can do too.
That introverts can do. Yeah.
Yes, this is something that the introverts can do. I backed off a little bit. I was pretty heavily in using social media. I'm still moderately inept with Twitter. And I need to get back to blogging. I actually kind of miss it, but Facebook, I use Facebook fairly well. It mostly is for I'm going to be at Convergence, and here's pictures of my cats. My two cats are actually more famous on the internet than I am. I can post something heartfelt and well thought out, and my ideas about it, and I'll get 2 likes and a comment like, yeah, that's great, son. But then I'll post pictures of my cats, and they'll just be cuddled up and sleeping, and there's like 900 likes. And,
Is this your Facebook author page or your personal page?
This is my personal page.
Okay, so yeah, you can even have a Facebook author page, and then you have your private page so that you can put pictures of your cats, and then talk about books on your Facebook author.
People get attached to your cats. It's like
They do.
we had a
really
big
super
thing where
attached to them.
pipes broke in the house, and I'd be like online going, the plumber had to cut the ceiling open. They're like, are the cats all right?
I'm totally I talk about my diabetic cat on Twitter all the time, by which Tex is going to be
A handicapped cat, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Cat.
I just have, that's a big part of your social media is your brand. And so my brand, my Twitter is a professional Twitter. So I talk about publishing, I talk about beer, and I talk about my cats. And I don't have a
This is
diabetic one, but
this is the profession we work in. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things where it's, clearly most of my connections are, and if you're a writer, most of your connections are going to be because you're a writer and you're writing things that other people are writing. But it's really important to have very strategic enthusiasms that you then make public. It doesn't matter if you're private, it doesn't matter if you're an introvert. There just needs to be 2 things.
Yeah, the whole leather fetish rubber thing, that does not need to go on your professional page.
Yes.
Yeah.
For your mom, yes, fine, but yes. Do we have children in the audience? Okay, no.
Okay.
Yeah, my theory about all of this, the change that we're seeing is that we're going back to where personal context and trust are even more important than they ever were before. Because, and this goes back to my comment about Sturgeon's law, 90% of everything is crap, right? So the question is, how do you find the good stuff? How do you, the reader, find the good stuff? You look for something that you trust. Generally an author name, right? You read something by Martha before, you know she's good, you're gonna buy the next thing. Ideally, from my point of view, a publisher logo. We strive really, really hard to make sure that Bain stands for a particular kind of experience, and then you get that experience from us at all times. Not necessarily a kind of book, but a kind of experience, right? So that the branding makes sense.
That's a good point, because like if I read like Pat Hodgel versus Dave Weber, it's a very different kind of book.
Yeah.
But there is a very similar type of that epic sweep of an experience with those two things. So yeah.
I will get you your $5 after the panel.
Thank you. This is what we do in this business to earn extra cash.
I mean, it makes a big difference in publishing. Like there are specific imprints that I would like to work with, but I'm never going to have anything for them because they have a very specific aesthetic, and I need to honor that aesthetic. But when there is something that like there are certain books I have that I know as soon as I take on that project, I'm going to these 6 publishers because I know all of them will love it. And it's because they kind of build their brand, and whether it's a publisher, an agent, or a freelance editor, or whatever, we all have a very specific mission and principle that we're operating by. And we know what we want. So like even like whenever we've changed anything with our categories or we make a plan for the next year, we have a meeting near the end, like what is our goal for next year? And it's like more geek, more nerd, more this, more that. And we kind of make that goal of what we want, and we try to honor it, and then we tweak accordingly.
And that's I want to take that and run, since there's a lot of new writers and up and coming and working and emerging writers. Some of you will come up through short fiction, probably at some point, and that's super important in short fiction to understand your market. When I was at Fantasy Magazine, it said right there on the masthead, Fantasy Magazine. What do? We do fantasy. We're a fantasy magazine. Do you know how many times I could just automatically reject something because it was hard science fiction?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I totally do. You've seen it. And so understand your market, know your market, and frankly respect that market too, because if I start to see that you are sending me stuff that isn't even on target a lot, eventually I'll start to recognize your name, and you won't make it past me.
And we all talk to each other.
We do.
It's weird how some people just do not get that, because especially when I was first starting out, and people would ask me questions, and they say, well, I'm gonna send this to this magazine, and you're like, they don't publish this.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I'm gonna send it. And it's like, well, no, yeah, I'm gonna send it. It's like, no, you just don't. It's really, there's a mental leap there that.
Well, I mean, I would be like Donald Trump wealthy if I ever got paid a penny for every time someone said, I know you don't represent, insert whatever category it is, but or I thought you would make an exception. No,
Or
I'm not
I'm
gonna
sorry
make an
I
exception.
didn't follow your guidelines, but here
Yes.
goes.
No, delete. Like, you don't respond to that.
Yeah, my agent says that if you actually follow the guidelines and do what they say, then you're like, it puts you in the upper 40%.
Yes.
I would say it's upper 20.
Upper 20, yeah, I would say upper 20, 25.
Like you think that that's an exaggeration, it's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
I'm doing something right now, just if you guys are really curious. And every once in a while I do something on Twitter with the hashtag. It's hashtag 500 queries. And I'm doing something for the next like 2-3 weeks, and I've been doing it for the past couple weeks. It's hashtag 500 queries, hashtag every query, where every time I answer queries, I have one tweet about each one. And I will say what it is, and
You don't say the
why.
title, though, you
No,
just say-
it's like this is science fiction. This is middle grade.
And then you give your
contemporary.
author name, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and then their contact information. So people now following that get to see exactly how many of the same idea I get, exactly how many people don't follow convention, exactly all of that. And most people, I've had probably a couple of hundred people say, oh, I had no idea, this is ridiculous. I know, that's why I'm doing it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've had people answer my slush pile, and it just feel free to go to our website or know me. I have no tolerance for memoirs. Like, I feel like it should be tattooed across my forehead. No memoirs. If you answer my slush pile, 60% at least of my queries are memoirs. I don't know how many other ways to say it.
Yeah.
Memoir.
Memoirs.
Memoirs.
Yeah, I'm like, I do not want to know your personal life story unless I know you, but I don't need your book in format of your life story. And it's 75% of my queries are memoirs, despite it being an uppercase bold red font on website. No memoirs.
So look, memoirs, you must want
Right.
that.
Yeah, there are 5 of us, and not a single one does that.
So I think there's sort of again, there's tons of really good information out there. 90% of what you will read will be crap. So how do you figure out the good information about publishing and about how to get published and so on? How do you filter that stuff? Well, obviously us, because we're,
I actually have a page on my website with links to actual articles that are good, like how to do a query and how to write a proposal, and there some are by agent agent blogs where they've talked about that. There's a publishing, one agent blog did a publishing dictionary and posting process, all that kind of stuff. So I got that on my website.
I'm gonna ask everybody for one suggestion in that line and then open it up for questions, okay?
Yeah, that sounds
All right.
good.
If you were writing short fiction, go to William Shen's website and use his submission format. That is really kind of the industry standard.
Mm-hmm.
Except when it's not, so check every submission. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for the dead tree format here. Jeff Herman's Guide to Editors, Publishers, and Writers. I mixed up the title there, but Jeff Herman's Guide. He now is updating the online website. Also the Writer's Digest reference guide. Either one, but please note we do turn in those the updates to them a year in advance. So, for example, we have 5 agents at our agency. It only lists 3 right now, so I have to turn in the edits for the next print edition. So make sure when you do the print edition, then go to the agency website.
Mm-hmm.
As much crap as I give Chuck Sampuccino, his material on putting together like your author platform and your marketing materials and your queries. Yeah, he does. He does classes. He's got a book. He's on social media. He has blog posts. Like Writer's Digest. So Chuck Sampuccino is like the face of that area of Writer's Digest, and they do a great job.
Okay. Sort of on the watch out for stuff things, writer beware is a good site. Because there's a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of people who want to take advantage of hopeful writers. And this is a place that collects and vets these sort of like the Snopes of writer sites. Yeah. So
Mine is basically the section on my website, but I mean that you would not believe that how often that happens. Like early on when we first started getting email, I had a woman email me that I didn't know, and she had sold. She said, I need advice, and I saw you on Genie, and this is what happened, and is that a scam? And I had to tell her yes, that she was working with it was a scam agent who said that her book was going to be a big bestseller, blah blah blah, but it just needed to be edited by a friend of his who she would have to pay, and she paid like $2,000 or something.
Oh.
Yeah. And she said, and I told her and I explained it to her, and she came back. She said, I think I knew, but I just wanted to hear it from somebody, that another party, and it was just like really sad.
Yeah. No,
And there's also like a horror novel, and the horror market had collapsed the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
And so there wasn't really much market for that anymore, except unless you were Stephen King.
Right. So you had this book, you had all this wonderful hopes for it, and then
Yeah.
So I mean, it's fun to destroy the hopes of young writers, but you really shouldn't take advantage of it.
You should nurture them, but you shouldn't
This is being filmed, isn't it?
That
That was
Crushing the hopes and dreams of young short fiction writers.
not to crush dreams.
All right, let's see. You have a question? Black shirt, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah. So I just wanted to ask Laura to talk about more about what partner publishing was and how that differs, how you believe that differs from the old vanity press?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's very nebulous. And you'll find, lots of different articles will say that something is something, and another article will say that it's something completely different. But Vanity Press, as told by Predators and Editors, which is another really good website, like Writers Beware. It tells you what, presses are good, what are bad, what are defunct, what are predatory. Sort of according to them, a vanity press is they'll take anything, really, really low quality. It's the type of place where people go when they have their grandfather's World War II memoir and they want like 7 copies, right? If people want to do self-publishing in a more legitimate fashion, I mean, if we're talking like your Hugh Howey is an exception because he does it all by himself because he's that kind of dude. For the people who aren't able to, and don't necessarily have the connections for a great cover designer, and they don't know the difference between developmental and copy editing and what they need, and they need other people to sort of help them. Partner publisher, also called hybrid publisher, which is not to be confused with hybrid author, which is somebody who publishes independently and traditionally. So a hybrid publisher is a publisher that basically is more exclusive, and they basically work like a traditional publisher in the services that they offer, but the financial model is like a vanity press in that the money flows away from the author at first, ideally hoping that the money would then flow to them later. Some of them will take a percentage of the royalties, most of them will not. So most of them are just fully work for hire. You own everything. You own, obviously you have the copyright, you own the text, you own the physical books, you own the ebook, you own the artwork for the front cover. If something needs to be licensed, like a picture for the front cover, then it's coming from you. So it's also called like assisted self-publishing. And it's
a little more hands-on.
It's a little bit more hands-on.
One key thing about vanity presses is vanity presses will lie to you.
Yes.
I mean, as opposed to what Laura's talking about, where it's very clear, what you're buying. A vanity press will often lie. They'll say they have distribution through Ingram. What they have is they have the list in the back of the Ingram catalog. There's like a one-line list of books. And no, bookstores don't buy from that. And that's what they're calling distribution, as opposed to the front of the catalog with the pretty pictures and all the stuff. And they'll lie about things like that. They'll try, sometimes some of them would try to get your rights from you, even though you're paying them.
They'll nickel and dime you, so they'll say, well, you have editing, but you also have this and this and this.
They'll sell you awards. They have their awards, which you can buy, and you can get like a plaque and everything like that. It's like
Extra for commerce.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Any other questions?
So how does that differ from, let's say, Author Solutions, which?
Author Solutions is a scam.
Yeah.
It's actually a scam.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot of discussion of Author Solutions and why it's so bad, and that it's also owned by Random Penguin.
Well, they bought it out, and it's kind of been a crash and burn situation. Do you agree? Yeah, I think they were trying to salvage a sinking ship on that one.
Author Solutions will charge $7,000 for a professional review that you can go to that reviewer's website and get it for $450. Like, they're a scam.
The whole idea of paying for reviews appalls me,
Yeah.
but that's because I'm old-fashioned. All right,
Yeah.
so you had a question back there?
Yeah, could you describe the issues around ISBN for people that are self-publishing and want to try to move their book around?
I can talk about that.
Yeah. And probably define it to people too, what
An
ISBN is.
ISBN.
The issues around the ISBN, that's the International Standard Book Number, and you can buy this through Bowker.com, BOWKER. This is how we know that books get sold. So have you ever heard of Nelson Book Scan? Not everybody's on that, but this is when every time a book is scanned and the store is registered with Nelson Book Scan, that gets tracked somehow. And that's how you see all those New York Times
It's a
bestsellers.
unique number that's used throughout
Yeah.
the industry.
So that is like the social security number for your book.
You can
Okay.
purchase it for $125 if you buy it in groups of 10.
Sure.
They'll be
Yeah.
a lot cheaper.
It's $250 for a group
Yeah.
of 10, and then you have to buy the barcode, which you buy
25.
it's $25 for the barcode.
Which you
You-
want anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you'll need an ISBN for electronic books. You do not need a barcode for electronic books. For print, you need ISBN and the barcode.
Yep.
It's all very easy to navigate. You set up an account, but you need to have an ISBN, and bookstores will not take your book if you do it yourself without a barcode and ISBN on the back.
Yep. I would also, on the topic of that, just you need a different ISBN if you have different print formats. So if you have a hardcover and a paperback, you need 2 for that. But if you have an ebook, a lot of people will say that you need 1 for Mobi and 1 for EPUB, and that's not true.
I had to do one for Kindle and one
You
for
don't actually
EPUB.
have to.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you should also register your book with the Library of Congress to
Which
get your
also-
LCCN.
Also costs money, and they won't do until you have a finished product.
And you literally give them the manuscript when you upload it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just registered one this week, so yeah, it's not too hard, but it takes like 8 months if you do it
Yeah.
electronically.
If you're with a publisher, like if you're self-publishing through like a partner publisher, then publishers have the ability to pre-register for LCCNs, and they can get it in literally 2 days. So that's neat. But yeah, it's one of those things where you just gotta do it.
One of the reasons why you want an LCCN is so the libraries can actually catalog your book, and you have potential library sales as well. Question in the back, yeah.
Yeah, could you explain a little bit your take on, you said small bookstores don't like to buy things through Amazon, exactly what you meant, I mean.
Amazon is out to crush the tiny bookstores.
Your
They-
mom and pop grocery store does
Yeah.
not shop at Walmart, but.
They basically undersell it, so they sell their books at a loss. So they sell their books at a loss, and basically what's happened over time is they even create an application where you can like see a book in a bookstore and then buy it on their website cheaper. The ABA came back up against that and came up with their own application for that, but the reason is that Amazon has not made a profit in
On books.
ever.
Because if you go there
Yeah.
for books, you'll buy their
But-
Kindle, you'll buy there for everything.
But if you buy a book at a bookstore, the money stays in your community, and it also helps grow that business so that they can continue to add more books and do more author in real life events. It's something that there's nothing wrong with shopping at Amazon. I personally do not shop at Amazon anymore, but I do try to make sure that I buy my books locally so the money stays in the community and keeps my authors and other authors fed and a house over their head. Because Amazon is not helping them at all.
Wait.
Oh, well, to a certain degree. Not to a certain degree. I mean, there's always going to be sales, but I feel like they do not care about the author as much as the bookstores do.
All right, was a question over
Yeah.
here?
Yeah, if you're doing like, for example, someone was doing Nook and or Amazon, and going back to the ISBN, then it would make more sense to get your own ISBN, because the publishers, from what I understand, will offer, they have sort of their own number, and they'll assign you out of the
If your book is being published by a publisher, then that is the ISBN that will be associated
what
with the
they
book.
do.
Yep, so-
You,
so
the author, do not do that.
You want, if you're being published with anybody else other than you just doing it,
Yeah.
you use their ISBNs because publishers have like blocks of ISBNs, and that is what. So the ISBN is a form of metadata, which is data about data, which is how we know like how much a book costs.
That's what the NSA does.
Yeah, yeah. So it's so when distributors, so like Baker and Taylor and Ingram, which gets your book to bookstores, they don't work with individual authors. They work with publishers, and having an ISBN through that publisher sort of claims the book as coming from under that publisher's umbrella, which
And when
means
you
that
buy-
it will be distributed.
And when you buy an ISBN, once you assign it to a book, you go back to Bowker.com and you tell them all the information about
Yep.
that book, the price point, the publisher, you put in all that metadata so that it's just out there floating in the internet for the world to see.
And my question,
Now, if you have retained the ebook rights, if the publisher is publishing only in print form or only in audiobook form or only as a comic book or what have you, then yes, for your different format that you are personally publishing, you must get a different thing. But otherwise, no, do not touch it. You will only make things bad. So,
This
all right,
is stuff that you don't have to worry about.
green shirt.
I've got this rant about Barnes and Noble.
We all have rants.
We all have rants about Barnes and Noble.
What's your question?
I'm seeing Barnes and Noble starting to act the way Amazon has with the Kindle in terms of the note, that they're trying to lock the ebooks into their own software. I'm seeing Kindle no longer allowing Bain to sell ebooks and have them delivered to the Kindle. Because
Makes us feel warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, so many lines get drawn.
I'm seeing this kind of monolithic wall being set up between most of the publishers and Amazon and Barnes and Noble together, and then with the writers and the readers sort of like on one side and the publishers and the big bookstores on the other. And
I will just note that if you buy your ebooks from Bain Books, you can buy it in any damn format you want. You can download it as many times as you want, and you can get it forever. So,
everything
yeah, I just
everything
mentioned.
I buy that you publish, I buy from you rather than from them because I hate them. But
We love them.
But we're
yes.
all about we really, this is what we're talking about is DRM, digital rights management. So we want to have DRM-free books out there.
Do you guys know what that is?
So,
Okay.
so basically, you should be able to read your book on any damn tablet you want to read it without being limited. So I am thankful. I had a Nook in the early days, but my Nook application would have never been able to be opened on a Kindle, but I can open it on my iPad. If you get Kobo, you can read that on your iPad. Thankfully, with the exception of Amazon, if you're buying your ebooks in other places, at least you can open it on most tablets.
Oh, there are ways. Anyway,
Yeah.
one more question, then we'll wind it up.
I'm just making a comment, I have an iPad and I can read Kindle books.
All right, guys, that's a whole nother panel.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.